What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hot Shots. I'm JD. Today we're going to be discussing Ohtani versus Trout. This is not a comparison between the two skill-wise, but instead today we're going to be talking about their competitive nature, the future of both of their careers, and what the Angels should do this offseason if Ohtani leaves. Should Trout ask for a trade? Do the Angels go into another rebuild with or without Trout? Find out right now on Hot Shots. The Angels are going for a playoff push. Right now, they're on a really bad losing streak. It's not looking too good. It looks like they might have made a mistake by not trading Ohtani. And I really wanted to compare these two because, one, I don't think we're ever going to see something like this ever again in baseball with two players like this on the same team. Both unbelievable players, generational talents. I want to talk a little bit about their competitive nature because Ohtani has been very, very open about that. He wants to win. Trout seems very content that he's staying with the Angels in Anaheim. They seem like they go for it, but he seems all right that they don't really make the playoffs. So the big question that I have for you is, if Ohtani leaves, do you think Trout will follow and ask for a trade? The only reason I'm asking this is because the clock's ticking on Ohtani. Both of them don't have rings. And this offseason, the huge question is going to be, where is Ohtani going? And it seems more than likely that he's not going to be in an Angels uniform. So it just makes me question if Trout is going to finally be like, hey, let me go.
So I'm going to look at it from a completely different perspective. I'm going to look at it from another organization's perspective, and like to be tied to that, I wouldn't do it. As generational of a talent he is, let's not pretend like he's played a full season, but he averages 124 games a year, right? He hasn't had over 100 RBIs more than 4 times in a season. Or I'm sorry, he's only done it 3 times. No 200 hit seasons, which I know is an astronomical feat. Mm-hmm. But, and he still strikes out almost approaching 1 time a game. So, like, to be tied to that till a guy's 40, I wouldn't want to do it. So I don't see him going anywhere. I think he's been content with how everything's been going. And whether Ohtani stays or goes, I don't think it matters to him.
I agree with you there, Houdini. I just can't see Ohtani staying. We talked about it on another podcast. I just don't see him staying there. And it's really going to say a lot this offseason, if he does re-sign with LA, because he must really love LA.
Deepaw, what if they make the playoffs?
I think it's going to reveal a lot about Shohei Ohtani, honestly. If they make it, they scrape into the wild card probably. In regards to Trout, Trout's not going anywhere. He's locked up till he's 40. He's getting paid. And, he's been there through all of it, through another rebuild before, too. So I think Trout stays.
Yeah, it brings up a good point a little bit about how loyal Mike Trout has been. Like, that's not like a thing that people don't know. Mike Trout is almost as loyal as they come. He wanted to be an Angel. He knew what he was getting into when he signed this contract. He had an interview with Ken Rosenthal not too long ago on a Fox Sunday night game where they do the interview while he's playing, and he kind of brought up the point that we're talking about right now. And he said, look, I signed this contract to play here. My goal is to win a World Series. So I'm not saying that he doesn't want to win. It just seems like Ohtani is a lot more competitive than he is, and he wants to win a little bit more badly. Would you agree with that?
That's, not to jump in, but I think that's the talk. I think that's what a lot of people are saying, but we'll see this, this offseason. I think that's going to reveal a lot about him.
Is Trout, you kind of touched on it a little bit, Houdini, but is Trout supposed to go through another rebuild with the Angels?
Right.
He's now been through 2. If you remember way back when they signed Pujols, they brought in C.J. Wilson, who was like the best pitcher on the planet at the time. They brought in Josh Hamilton. That didn't work out. And then recently they brought in Anthony Rendon. They brought in Justin Upton and re-signed him when they traded for him. And then they brought in Ohtani, and it didn't work again. So is he supposed to go through a 3rd rebuild with this team? I mean, at some point you almost lose hope.
But to the Angels front office, it's not like it's lack of effort.
Yeah, they kept trying.
It's not lack of effort. Dude, Rendon had a great year when they went after him. You know what I mean? That was supposed to be the third baseman. That was supposed to be the best third baseman Anaheim seen since Troy Gloss.
Wilson from the Rangers that year, too. Like you said, Jedi was a stud that year. So, I mean,
and Josh Hamilton at the time?
Yep.
Obviously this was before everything kind of came out, right? With him, and this was it came out when he was in Texas.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not blaming the front office. They tried to make moves. It hasn't worked. We saw it with the Mets. They tried to make moves, didn't work. They shedded the dead weight. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't really blame the front office. I think they're doing everything they can to try and win. It's just not working, not translating onto the field.
Yeah.
Dean, can you just move your camera like that, just so like you're centered? Because I'm gonna end up square rooting. Like, okay, there. Because I'm gonna square it. Yeah, perfect.
Right there?
Because I'm gonna square it off, and I don't want you to be cut off.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the last point that I have on this, I mean, I could sit here and talk about this all day, is do you guys rank greatness and legendary status with championships? It's kind of a big knock on somebody like Ken Griffey Jr., who a lot of guys always mention he doesn't have the thing everybody wants. He doesn't have the ring. So, I mean, if Trout never wins, is it going to knock some points off of your book? And it goes back to Ohtani, too. Ohtani's got to win, too. Talk about Babe Ruth, about how he's the greatest player of all time. Like, look, man, one thing personally for me that I grade a player's status on is how you perform when the lights are the brightest in the playoffs, because that's when it counts. Everything's cool and all in the season with what Ohtani does, with what Trout does, but we really don't know if they are good in the playoffs because they don't play. Trout only played 2 games in the playoffs in 2014. That was it. He's never been back. The only thing that we've gotten to see Ohtani and Trout in is the World Baseball Classic, and that was awesome to watch. It broke so many records with viewership. So, I mean, like, is greatness in a level of winning championships a big deal to you guys?
Can I ask a follow-up question before I answer? Am I allowed
Sure.
to do that?
You sure?
In sports,
Uh-huh.
is baseball the least when it comes to grading a player or, like, judging a player based on his championships?
Maybe in a sense, because I feel like baseball is one of the sports that you can't get carried by one person. I feel like in basketball, you can get carried by an individual that has maybe like a Robin there, but he's no Batman. You know, I feel like you can get away with that in football. I mean, you see the stuff that Pat Mahomes does. So,
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
a
I feel
great
like
question,
baseball, there's no one-man show in baseball.
Like, I feel like if you rank the top sports, right, like the sport that matters the least of winning a championship, it has to be baseball as one.
I think so, just because, you know, baseball has such a history with like going back so long, and it's always been, you know, been a long season, been a ton of games played, a ton of different stats too. So I think there's always been, you know, that obsession with other stats and like the baseball oddities and how, basically at least once or twice a month something has happened in baseball that's never happened before. So, you know, I think there's a lot of other things to rank in baseball which makes that happen, Dean.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, like, how do you judge a position player on success if the pitching staff sucks?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, you know, that was my thought. So to answer your question, in baseball, do I rank greatness on championships? No, not at all.
Go ahead. No.
We're spoiled because we're Yankee fans, Jedi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can look back and say Jeter was one of the greatest of all time, but if Jeter didn't play for the Yankees,
You played for the
you know what I
Reds.
mean? Is Jeter the great? Is Jeter the great? One of the greatest of all time? I don't know. I can't answer that. But like, can a single individual like help change a culture of an organization? Yes, you saw it with Jordan with the Bulls. But let's not pretend like every single athlete that we talk about as being the greatest ever didn't have an amazing supporting cast, and that includes LeBron's Cavs team. So, to answer your question, baseball, no.
You know, I think it does have some effect on it, but, you know, ultimately when I look at it, I take it into consideration. That's not the end-all, be-all. You know, someone can still be great but not have a championship. But, you know, there's a laundry list of players in all sports that haven't won championships that I'd consider great. Does it help? Yes, absolutely. You know, you get someone like Jeter who's won, you know, how many World Series. Like, it just cements them in the elite, the most elite of the elite.
But
yeah,
Jedi,
it's a tough question. I didn't say it was going to be an easy question.
yeah, but Jedi, I'm not discrediting what you're saying by how someone performs in the postseason. I'm not discrediting what you said there. Like, I think that is a very massive part to the discussion on a player's greatness, because obviously, like, was Jeter an all-time great regular season player? He was good. But was he an absolute great baseball player in October? Yes.
Yeah. And I think it goes the other way around too. But that was our talk about Ohtani versus Trout. Let us know, what's your take on this? Do you think that Trout leaves? Do you think he'll follow if Ohtani does walk away from Anaheim? I mean, do you agree or disagree with us? Let us know at Hot Shots Podcast.